I'm thinking out loud, baby. We found love right where we are.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Thinking Out Loud with Hayden, Brady, and James. This is episode 4, and today's topic is when you feel spiritually numb. So we'll kind of jump right into it. Have y'all ever felt like you believe in God, but you don't really feel Him anymore? Like you're still praying, you're still showing up, you're still trying, but something just feels kind of off. You're not doubting, you're not angry. You're just you're just numb. I feel like nobody really talks about that part of faith. Maybe it's because if we think we're not on fire, then something something must be wrong with us. So today we're going to talk about spiritual numbness, kind of what it is, why it happens, and what to do when God feels silent. So we'll kind of jump right into the first question. Have you ever felt spiritually numb? That's the first question. In your life, have you ever felt just like you're kind of at this point where nothing feels like it's happening?
I mean, I think for everybody, I know for me, like we've kind of talked about before, it comes in waves. It's a little bit of a roller coaster ride, and there's sometimes you're just kind of waiting. And it's not necessarily that you don't feel a connection sometimes, but it's just that you don't, like, there's nothing major happening in your life. So it's kind of just a weird middle ground. It's like, what's God calling me to do? What do I need to be doing right now? I know that's something that I felt before during times of my life. Even during the summers, during breaks and whatnot, I kind of feel like nothing's going on. Maybe I'm working the same job that I've been working, or whatever it is, and nothing major is happening. So that's kind of a time that I've felt spiritually numb, or just not felt like there's anything active happening in my life as far as with the Lord.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for me, it was kind of when I got to Northwest, everything kind of slowed down. And that's, you know, whenever you're spiritually numb, it doesn't necessarily mean you failed. You don't want to think that at all. Maybe it's just you feel like you're going through the motions. And for me, that's how it was at Northwest. I felt like I was just going through the motions of things. Life kind of had its distractions. And for me, that was football. That was um, a relationship. That was school. A lot of things that kept me busy and kind of off topic or kind of away from the Lord in a sense. And that's where that numbness came in. So that'll lead us into that next question of why do you think spiritual numbness happens?
I think sometimes it can happen whenever you feel like you've kind of not reached a peak, but it feels like you've gotten like the things that you were actively working on, and sometimes you get to a little bit of a high, and you're like, okay, cool, I've kind of reached my goal. I don't, sometimes you almost feel like you don't have to rely on anything for a little while, and you just lose sight of what the actual purpose, who got you there, and who you need to give thanks to, and that God's plan doesn't end right there because you've reached a little bit of a high. It keeps on going. It keeps on going. You got to keep striving to do better and better.
Um, at least for me personally, I feel like the spiritual numbness normally happens in situations where you are either getting tested or you're going through not necessarily a hard time, but just getting tested by something, whether it's a decision or an opportunity or just life itself. Maybe you're getting tested. And I feel like that is where I hear God the less, mostly because I think He is, in my life personally, obviously it doesn't have, not the same for everybody, but in my life personally, I feel like He knows what like the gifts that he's given, all the knowledge he's given me to get through that, but he's taking a step back and allowing me to put my faith in him in order to get through that. And I feel like that's where I feel the most spiritually numb is where he takes a step back and lets me be tested in those scenarios. That's just me personally. Obviously, y'all probably will.
Yeah, and this kind of ties back to that last question for me. It's kind of just there's that routine where you might be with the Lord, you have that relationship with Him. I'm not going to say constantly, but I'm going to say you're praying pretty often. You're reading the Bible. You're doing all the things that that make you a Christian, that keep you in that relationship with them. But then kind of while you're doing them, that kind of turns into they just going through the motion part of it. And so I think it happens, I'm going to go back to, it's not to be taken as a bad thing. I think whenever you have that numbness, it's to be taken more as a signal and a time to reconnect. He'll slow down a little bit and reconnect with the Lord and the faith side of it. And it can feel like dryness, but I think that's also a way of God working behind the scenes. It could be Him showing us patience. It could be Him giving us a different perspective on things. Just I need to slow down for a second and kind of remember what the purpose is and actually take a moment to live in God's glory. His creation, it's beautiful every day. There's always a sunrise, there's always a sunset. And we just need to kind of slow down. So I think that even in numbness, it can be seen as a way to just God's still here, but we need to slow down a little bit. We're going into that next question, number 3. It's kind of off topic a little bit, but can faith exist without emotion? What do y'all think about that?
I could, I guess, kind of piggyback off of what you were talking about and talking about that kind of those dull moments a little bit. I would say, I would almost venture to say nothing can exist without emotion or no progress. I think what emotion you have can determine if you still have faith. Because, you can be angry and still have faith in God. You can be in a good time and happy and you can still have faith in God. But I think there needs to be emotion to progress your faith, and kind of how we've talked about before about the intentionality of the whole thing, and it's kind of where's your heart really at about what you're doing. I think that's an important thing to look at, and something that some people don't realize almost is kind of, you can do all the right things, you can check the boxes, whatever, but if your heart's not really into it, then you're never going to progress. Just like with anything in life, if you really don't have a drive to be better, to do better, then you'll never progress in your faith, in life, and everything. There isn't a thing in life that isn't a true statement for.
You saying yes or no to that question?
No.
You're saying no? Okay, I'm gonna.
No with an apostrophe type of deal.
So I'm gonna say yes, that it can exist without emotion. I don't think faith is. It's not just a feeling. I think faith it's a choice. It's deciding to trust God, to believe in His promises. I think even when your heart feels dry and numb, emotions, I think they can make faith feel alive. But they aren't what faith is built on. You can obey, you can pray, you can lean into God, even if you don't feel that spark. When you think about it, emotions come and go. One day, you might feel peace, you might feel it all for the Lord. You might experience some joy, and the next day nothing. But faith it's what stays consistent. It's that steady trust, through those quiet seasons. Even in the Bible, I'm gonna kind of use an example here. Even in the Bible, you think of Job. He remained faithful even in grief and confusion. You think about the Israelites. They often had to trust God even without feeling Him. And Jesus Himself, when He was in the garden, He prayed out of obedience, out of trust, and even when He was overwhelmed with emotion. So if you're in that season where faith feels quiet or absent, it's normal. But I still do think that even when there's no emotion, that faith can still exist. It's just you acting on what you believe in, even if your heart hasn't caught up yet. So the feelings just kind of follow later.
Let me ask, when you say emotion, do you mean just strong emotions and like passionate emotions?
I'm not going to say all the time. No, I'm not going to say it doesn't have to be a strong emotion all the time. Uh, but even if there's just a little bit of a emotion there. Brady, what you thinking over there?
Nah, I'm not really sure to be honest. Um, because when you think about emotion, you kind of think about your heart. Emotion comes from your and the Bible tells you that your heart is deceitful. Not trust your heart. Heart can be deceitful, but the Bible also says, um, like bring those emotions to God and let your emotions be an overflow of your faith and of your trust in God. If we're talking about negative emotions like that, I don't know which emotions we're talking about again, like James and confused, but if we're talking about like the passion we have for our faith, can our faith exist without that passion? If that's what you're talking about, I think that if it's faith without some sort of passion or ambition, then the faith is not a real faith.
Well,
Obviously,
let's go.
like spiritual numbness exists, and I think that's completely okay. But the issue is we don't sit in that. We don't sit in that spiritual numbness. We get out of it, which is a different kind of faith. I would say we don't sit in our spiritual numbness for the rest of our lives. Like it's a period of our life. There's ups and downs. There's different seasons. And then if that's the case in those moments of spiritual numbness, I don't think your faith ever goes without complete emotion. I think if your faith was dead, then at that point it would be without complete emotion and you would have no passion for God. But I think the fact that we always get out of those moments of spiritual numbness means that we never without emotion to begin with. So,
Already
Hey,
explain kind of what I was thinking in a better way. Because to me, which I said it can't exist without emotion because I think also, yeah, like you have an emotion at all time. There's a range of emotions that you feel. Um, I feel like you can't really be existing almost without some sort of emotion happening going through your mind. But like what Birdie said, if it's more of the passion um, that you have, then yeah, that's kind of why Birdie explained it a lot better than I did. Um, but I
I
feel
think
like
that's
most
what the
people need
trying to
emotion.
ask at least. Yeah.
yeah, so I guess the question should be more worded like, can faith exist without emotion? Not all the time, because in that case, then probably not. But I think there's sometimes where our faith, there isn't any emotion, but it's still there. I mean,
I think your
agree to
emotions can be
disagree.
dulled. I think your emotions can be dulled down.
And that's kind of what I was just saying right there.
Yeah,
Uh, you
then
know, it,
and that I understand more of that. That's where the numbness would come into play and
right.
kind of not being there fully, um, but still having your belief, having your faith. In that, I would agree. But I think zero emotion. I feel like you can't have zero emotion and have faith.
Yeah. I like that. You gave me a little different perspective on it. And, I lean with it. I like it. And staying on that numbness, uh, we'll go to question 4. How do we keep following God when we don't feel?
I think that's where faith comes into play. Um, it's the same reason a blind person walks with a stick. You know, they trust that stick that it's going to kind of tell them generally where they're at. That's kind of what I think of faith almost being as being something you lean on, even though you, you don't necessarily see what it's telling you all the time, but you kind of have to trust what it's telling you. You know, a blind person feels the vibrations in that stick to know what surface they're on, what's in the way, what's in front of them, all that type of stuff. Um, but they can't see, they don't know if it's actually there. Uh, that's kind of what I think faith is in a way, and I think that's kind of an answer to that of really leaning on your faith and trusting that even though you can't see what's happening, you can't see what's coming up next, that you still have to trust and you still have to put your faith in Him, um, even if it's not just ever present and obvious right there blinding lights in your face.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna agree with you. You know, we have to keep going anyway. Um, it's built on trust, like you were saying, um, and going back to choice. It's our choice to make, and even when our hearts are numb, we can choose to pray and obey and read scripture, and you know that's how we stay connected. Uh, even when that connection feels invisible, another thing is to be honest with God. He knows exactly how you feel or don't feel. Um, and sometimes I think just telling him I don't feel you right now is an act of faith in itself. Uh, and remembering these seasons of that numbness, they're only temporary. If we choose for them to be that way, and that goes back to don't take it as a bad thing, but see it as a signal to grow. God can work in that quiet and that dryness, and in ways we don't see. But following Him in that dark, um, it can grow your faith, and we don't always have to feel Him constantly. But going back to that trust and just always knowing that He's there, and that's where faith is really built on. Just keep trusting, keep seeking, keep moving forward, and it's not always easy, but it's definitely worth it. I'm sorry, I didn't. Brady, you got anything for us? Anything on that question?
Pretty much
Okay,
wrapped it up.
all right, all right, sweet. So taking that taking that into the next one. What are some habits or practices that you know that help you whenever you feel disconnected from the Lord? Dude, I cannot hear what you're saying.
You cut
Oh,
out
shit.
really bad.
Well, screw it. That's something I don't want to talk anymore.
Yeah, dude, I'm so sorry, but I couldn't hear a word you were saying. It was cutting out
Forget about
terribly.
it.
Hang on, we'll come back to you. We'll
Hopefully-
see if it's just
Okay.
like a small bar. We'll come back to you in just a second, Brady.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I gotta read the question again. What are some habits or practices that help you feel or help you when you feel disconnected? Yeah, I'm gonna go to prayer. That's a big thing. Which at first, when I was at Northwest, bring up a little story for you. Uh, it was I was using it in the wrong way. So I was always praying for myself. It was like, God, help me do this. Help me say in football. Help me have a great game. Help me do all this. Or I was basically asking, or not asking because that would be right, but demanding in a sense. Like, I need you to help me do good in this game. I need you to help me perform well to get to the next place. Um,
Feeling
and
like you're
so,
owed almost.
yeah, I guess just because I've always felt overlooked, and I felt like I was finally deserving of something when I would perform well and nothing was happening. So I was asking in the wrong way. That was where, and later on down the road, I saw that was just not the right way to go about it, and that I had to, let go of that control and give it to God, and instead of demanding it, but going from demanding to asking, just Lord, will you be with me through this game and help me be successful in everything I do, and I hope that you're glorified in it. So that's where I had to grow and mature in that aspect of praying, and which I did. I got a lot better about it. So prayer was a big thing for me, and still is. And even when I take the field now, I'm still constantly praying that it'll help me in every way possible to succeed. But I'm not demanding it from them like I was. So that's where I matured in that. But go into music, me and James, that's kind of our thing. I mean, whenever I'm connecting with the Lord, it's normally through music, whether it's in the church standing up and we're worshiping, or if I'm just in a car riding for 5 hours down the road and I'm listening to some gospel music, dude, I'm fired up. I'm ready to go. So that's a big thing. And another thing is community for me. Accountability is a big thing. You know, I tend to struggle just by myself. If I'm normally, I need a reminder to just, hey, have you gotten in the Word today, or something as simple as that. But it's also so important for my relationship, because most of the time the answer is probably not. And so I think community is also just a really big thing for me.
I definitely like all of it. I think when you feel disconnected, community is a very big one. And even hearing other people's stories, what's going on in their life, can sometimes help you, whether it be sometimes you're struggling with stuff and it always seems to work out that whenever you're struggling with something, you hear a story about someone else that you know is struggling with something of the similar type. I know for me it was Bible study where up here at state, it just happened to be that a lot of people were dealing with some of the same problems that I was dealing with, and it was just good to hear that you're not alone in any of it. And then also, like Hayden was saying, prayer. That's a big one for me. You know, I've harped on that. And then also, in the same way of getting connected with people, something for me that can help is going out. For me, it's the outdoors, going hunting, going fishing by myself, and just being in complete by myself. It's just me and it's God's creation that can almost sometimes really help me, whether it be decompress with whatever's going on. It's kind of a time to just forget about the problems that you're dealing with, and it's also seeing God's beauty and learning lessons that God gives you out there instead of blowing up your problems that seem a lot bigger than they are, that you might have at campus or whatever it is. But yeah, those are some things for me. And then, of course, reading your Bible. Obviously, seems like every time I open my Bible, even if I don't really want to open my Bible, I read something and I'm like, yeah, I probably need to hear that type of deal, even if I don't have it planned.
Yeah, I mean, you know, even those tiny acts of faith, whether it's like just you know, helping a friend whenever they're struggling, but taking that, you can also grow in that situation by helping them. You can grow with them in that moment. So, Brady, kind of going back to you, if this will work this time, um,
Yeah.
what you think about it?
Well, I mean, y'all pretty much stole the cake on that one. There's nothing much I can say. All of those things I kind of, yeah. You can't hear me, can you?
No, no,
It's
Uh,
unfortunate that you didn't get to go first.
yeah, I mean, yeah. Sucks. Oh well. Y'all did
Let's
great.
still let's still hear some stuff. What stuff for Brady Torrance? What stuff for Brady
Yeah, dude.
Torrance that you think?
What helps you
Well,
when
the
you feel
exact
disconnected, dude?
it's the exact same thing. That's why I'm not
Okay.
saying it.
Okay.
You cut out while
So
saying
kind of
it.
like,
But yeah.
you know, community prayer and that kind of thing. Yeah, got it. Sweet. All right. So we'll move on to that last question, and kind of wrap it up. How can this season, if you're in this season of numbness now, or if you were in it, how can it actually help your faith grow? Just on experiences that y'all might have had or are having right now, how do you feel like it can help you grow?
I want to let Brady go. We took his answers.
All right, yeah. Uh, let's see. How can the season actually help grow your faith? I would say it's a period of testing your faith. Um, like I said earlier with question two, I think it just helps prepare you for much worse things than spiritual numbness, I would say, such as like maybe a difficult moment, like a tragic event that like happened in your life. Like it can help prepare you for that. Also, think it just helps prepare you for the hopefully 70 plus more years you have on this earth when you have to deal with similar situations like that over and over and over again. And I think it just ultimately just builds up your armor with God and makes you a better man of God.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hope you heard that.
James. Yeah, we heard
Yeah,
that loud and
we
clear,
heard
dude.
that.
Okay.
Hold on.
That was good.
Great.
Very good.
James,
Like
you got anything?
Um, yeah, I mean, Brady definitely said it well that time.
Oh yeah.
It was good to hear him. But yeah, it's definitely a way to test your faith, help you build on that, and also just to know how to deal with it when it happens again. And like Brady said, it will happen again, and it'll be worse, and it could be worse. But it's experience for you to know how to better handle the next time it happens.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, just like Brady, and kind of you just hit on, forces us to rely on something um, deeper than emotions. Going back to that trust, it's our trust, it's our commitment. Um, I mean, in these dry seasons, it can teach us to act in faith, even when we don't want to, or even when we don't feel it. It can teach us patience, humility, dependence, and God in a way that we might have never felt Him at all. I kind of think about it like this: you know, exercising a muscle when it's hard is when it resists, and that's when it grows stronger. And you take that spiritually. These quiet and dry seasons, they train our hearts to cling to God. Um, and so instead of seeing dryness as a punishment, just going back to what I've said earlier already, it's a chance for you to grow and mature in your faith. And, it shapes us in ways maybe we can't see it all. But that's also when the strength it gains and shows up later when we need it the most. So, any other thoughts on that as we kind of wrap this up? All right. Well, that was episode 4 of Thinking Out Loud with Brady, Hayden, and James, where I think I forgot to add this in the beginning. So, where we don't pretend to have all the right answers, but we aren't afraid to ask the big questions. So, until next time.